Hi, this is Erin from Morehouse Farm with today's knitting lesson, which is double knitting. We're going to use this technique to make Sean's hat, which was knit and designed by Sarah at Knit a Bit of Whimsy. And this awesome hat, great for either gender, creates such a warm, squishy fabric that's actually reversible because you're going to knit two fabrics at once. And the really cool thing about this is that that double fabric knit with our Morehouse Merino 3-strand, the heavy worsted weight, is that you're going to have that extra layer of fabric to keep you nice and warm in those cold Canadian winters like we get here in upstate New York also. All right, so let's get started. In order to do the setup row for our double knitting, we're going to increase the number of stitches by double so that we have one on each column for the front or our main color, and then one on each column for the back in our contrast color. And in order to do that, Sean's hat recommends that we knit through the front and back of each stitch. Right? You can use whatever increase you like, but that's the one Sarah's recommended for us. So here, as we're throwing, or American style, we're knitting through the front of the stitch, and then we're going to go knit through the back of the stitch using our contrast color. I just like to wrap it around, hold both ends to anchor, and then pull that new loop through. Now there's a front stitch purple and a back stitch white, meaning the purple will come forward on my outside, double knitting, and the white will go backwards on my inside. So to keep going with that, we'll have a knit with the purple through the front of the stitch, and then we'll knit through the back of the stitch with the white. Notice I just have to take a little care to make sure I am not using my tail, but rather using my working yarn, and pull that through. So one more time, knit through the front of the stitch with my main color, knit through the back of the stitch with my contrast color. And if you're knitting the other way, continental style, transfer the yarns to your left hand. And I just like to wrap them one over one finger and one over the other, because that now allows me to grab one, then go through the back of the stitch and grab the other, doing the same thing, but with a lot less movement. And if you're not a continental knitter, this might be something you want to try, because I find double knitting or color work, having two colors in my left hand, to go so much faster because I don't have to keep putting one down. But that might just be the way I like to hold the yarn. You may find it easier to hold both colors in your right hand. Then again, you're going to knit through the front, work that same stitch again, knit through the back with the opposite color. Knit through the front, and then knit through the back with the contrast color. And that's the setup row. Now that we've got our setup row completed, we're going to start with the actual double knitting. And because you're working with two colors at the same time, you've got a choice. Do you want to hold two in your right hand, one in each hand, or do you want to hold two in your left hand? And that's totally up to you based on the style of knitting that you want to do and how it helps to keep your yarns from getting tangled. So what we're going to do is we're going to start and we're going to knit each purple stitch, our main color, and we're going to purl each white stitch, our contrast color. And we're going to use the same color of yarn on each, so it is switching every other stitch. The other thing we need to be careful of is moving both yarns back and forth with each stitch so that they don't cross over in front, in the purple case, or in back on the inside of the hat with the white. So let me show you what I mean. First, if we're going to do throwing style or American style, yarn is in back, so we knit. Now we need to bring both yarns forward, and then we're going to purl with the white. So now I've started creating one fabric that's going to be on the outside of my hat and one that's going to be on the inside of my hat. I'm going to move the yarn back to knit with the purple. And then I'm going to bring the yarns forward, make sure you got both of them, to purl with the white. And as I keep going around, I'm going to need to make sure that I move my yarn back and forth. Oops, it looks like I got a split stitch here. I'm going to move my yarn back and forth to wherever it needs to go. So back for knit. Bring both forward to purl. And I'm just purling with this white one. If they tend to stick together based on the way you're holding it, maybe you want to split them, one over one finger and one over the other, just so that they're not right together. Now, if you want to do this a continental style or throwing, sorry, that's picking, what I find is that it's easier for me to hold them separated a little bit, and I've got one over my pointer finger and one over my middle finger. And then when I knit and they're in back, now it's very easy to bring both yarns forward, pick up my white one and just purl there. Now I'm bringing them back, knitting, bringing them forward and purling just the white one, bringing them back to knit. And notice how much more subtle the yarn movement is for back and forth when you're doing it this way, as long as you don't miss a stitch. So move it back, knit, move it forward to purl, move it back, knit, move it forward and purl. And what we're essentially doing is creating on the inside a row of what looks like it's going to be stockinette stitch, and it absolutely is, yet doing the same thing on the outside. And those two fabrics are created simultaneously. So if I take this out, we'll see that these purple ones want to line up in one side and these white ones want to line up on another. And that's how you're going to have not only two fabrics knit at once, but stockinette on both sides of your reversible hat. How cool is that? Oh, and did I mention the hat is completely reversible? Just another cool thing to learn when you're knitting. All right, happy knitting, everybody, from Morehouse Farm, and knit a bit of whimsy.